So I think as we saw in today's panel with Brigitte and Rachel and Santosh, when you have a great idea, there is a long road between that great idea and making it happen in practice. Michael talked about why this type of open tier fund is a great idea. He didn't talk about all the work that he made to make it happen within USAID. But for that, I'm very happy to introduce Hervé Berville. Hervé is today the French Secretary of State for the Sea. But before that, as a member of the French Parliament, he sat on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and in this context, actually came to visit me at PSC and then met with Michael to find out what he could do. And because he was set out to play a key role on the modernization of the French international cooperation. In particular, he was the rapporteur of the law, the famous law of 4 of August, voted on the 4th of August 2021, which is a law on inclusive development and the fight against global inequality. And in the work for this law, he very wisely decided that he was going to try to find out what other people had done in order to get inspired for this. This law, of course, sets out, has changed the architecture of French cooperation in many ways. One of them, not incidental, is money. But the other is also to introduce a number of new elements. And that sets the stage for the possibility of creating the Fund for Innovation and Development, in which he was a key, for which he was a key funding member, served on the board for some time. So before his political career, Hervé worked in the French Development Agency in Mozambique, and then before that in Kenya. And I'm delighted to call him to the stage now to talk to us about his experience.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. So I'll stop here for French. I saw Michael was quite worried. I'm really happy to be here. Honestly, I'm really happy. First of all, because we're celebrating 20 years, right, of GPAL. And I'm here also in the name of the French government to tell you how proud we are that you did what you did all across the world in those 20 years. And I'm here also to say congratulations for the amazing work. And I'm pretty sure seeing this young crowd, but this diverse crowd also, that you will have plenty of decades ahead of you to continue working on those crucial issues and those practical issues that you just mentioned, Michael. So thank you very much, Esther. We are really proud that you're French. You're American also, but you're French, and it's really something amazing to be able to have in this morning economists such as Michael Kramer, the Commissioner for the EU. I see here also Thomas Millonneau from the French Development Agency, all the researchers, the scientists, the economists here, a diverse crowd that show that you were able to gather a lot of people across those 20 years. I'm happy to be here also because I will confess something. I applied for an internship at GPAL, I would say like probably 15 years ago. I got rejected, of course, because I discovered development policy during a seminary at Sciences Po Lille, and of course it was not based on evidence, it was not based on quantitative data and what all the interesting things that you just showed in PowerPoint. No worry, I don't have any PowerPoint for you today. And I thought that I knew what was development after 3 months of a seminary on development policy. So I sent an email to Élise Huillery, and of course he said no. He said there is no place for you. Then, because I'm a little bit like stubborn as a Breton, because I was born in Rwanda, but I grew up I got adopted by a French family, and I grew up in Brittany, in Bretagne, the most beautiful region in France, of course. where I'm elected. Yeah, I see people over there. And I got accepted at LSE, and I discovered, sorry for the comparison, but a new ocean. I remember this course, DV 409, taught by the excellent Sandra Sequeira, and the first thing she told us was, okay, you have one book to buy. It's Poor Economists by two brilliant economists, Esther and Abhijit. And it became my livre de chevet. I'll leave you for the translation after. And 3 letters, RCT, kept coming every week. RCT, 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 RCT. And when I got elected in 2017, of course, one of my wish was to work on development policy. And I was really happy to see that the French President Emmanuel Macron took one commitment. He didn't took a lot on development policy, but it was not something really different from other parties, but he took one commitment to make sure that we reach the 0.55% of the GDP, spending of the GDP, which was an increase of which represented an increase of 5 billion of our ODA, coming from 9 billion in 2017 to 15 billion in 2022 that we just managed to reach. But with the president and also with other people that were still in the, sorry for the word, in the business, or at least in the field of development policy, we were a little bit frustrated because having this commitment and keeping this commitment of 0.55% was necessary but not sufficient. And it didn't say anything about the quality of what we were doing, and it didn't say anything about the impact. So, based on this frustration, based on our conversation, also, we realized that we need to do much more and try to have like a new way of approaching it, based also on 3 realities. First, that development policy, it's a part of the foreign policy, and it's not something separated, something technical, something financial. And there were like 3 realities. First of all, and I don't really like this word, but that's the way we let's say, we use it. But developed countries, and I work quite a lot in Africa and also in Asia, developed countries, OECD countries, were not seen as the perfect example of the development stage, if development stage exists. And with the triple crisis in our countries, social crisis, climate crisis, but also economic crisis, there were new examples, new road that other countries could take, and we were not seen as the one who had to only shape the global order, and we need to make sure that there is space for other countries. That was the first reality. So, in terms of like impulsing public policy, international cooperation, it was not as easy as it was during the Washington Consensus, which is a good thing. The second reality was that there were like an increasing role of emerging countries. And there were new, let's say, new banks, new strategy, the Belt and Road, the BRICS, the now banks chaired by Dilma Rousseff. So the international order was for me a good thing, more and more shaped by emerging countries, and also ODA, Overseas Development Institute, was also used by emerging countries as a way of influence, as a way also of increasing their footprint in other countries. So we knew, or at least we had to take into account the role of those new countries, and that's exactly the conversation that we have right now at the new financial pact, making sure that the Bretton Woods institution, making sure that our institution also take into account those new countries that did not exist in 1945. And the last reality was that the efficiency, the impact, and the legitimacy of ODA was put in question in our countries. When you see the rate of, let's say, adhesion to ODA in France, it declined. In Germany, it's the same. In the UK, there were some countries who chose to reduce their ODA. I'm not naming USA during the Trump era, where it was something seen as ineffective or useless. But we had to take into account also this public opinion. And we saw an increasing donor fatigues, saying the citizens of the developed countries cannot bear all the costs of the globalization, because they have the perception also that they're the one sustaining the impact of globalization with less industry, etc., etc. I'm not doing a macro course because it's not my job, but you know that better than I. And also there were a recipient fatigue. And I was really appealed when I work in Kenya and also in Mozambique that our counterparts, and especially in this part of Africa, they were totally and rightly totally tired of all the big conference, all the big talk about we're going to do new thing, we're going to do this, and in 10 years we're going to increase by 5 billion. So there were this urgency of putting in question the legitimacy, the efficiency, and the impact of ODA. So based on this, the French President Emmanuel Macron asked me to do a report on the modernization of our foreign aid policy with, let's say, 2 objectives: try to reshape our vision and try to transform our action. And make sure that we have clarification also in the sense, the objective, and the way we measure the result, we measure the way we achieve our goal. And it was in the moment that, after the Agenda 2030 in 2015 and the Paris Agreement, there were also confusion on the role, the objective on foreign aid. Is it to fight the climate change, erosion of biodiversity, what we put first, what we put as a priority? Do we use the French Development Agency to be like a climate bank? Do we make sure that we also help those countries on having a strategy and bold public policy on climate? So there was this necessity of clarifying also between people, planet, even if for me it's exactly the same thing. But in terms of financing, we're in the urgency of doing so. And another reality is that in France, there were no global strategy. There were a low citizen implication and civil society implication. We are not working at the right level with the research and the science, and Esther knows better than I. And there were a lack of impact, efficiency, and it was not an evidence-based policy. So I proposed a report with 36 proposals. I met Michael Kramer at this moment during an amazing lunch at the National Assembly, when he showed me exactly what he showed. A lot of a PowerPoint, and I was like, okay, we know to also reshape based on this our policy, or at least try to put some element on this. And thank you very much, because you really showed us the way also on showing that it was not that complicated, or at least it was something needed and feasible to implement in a short amount of time. It's kind of a DIV. And, of course, I had to meet, and I was really glad because, I say, it was my table de chevet book, so I took the opportunity of this report to ask a meeting with Esther Duflo, and she said 2 simple things that we'll always remember. First, this is a political question, but in the noble sense. This is not something you can just leave it as it's a technical question, and you need to have a political debate, making sure that when you talk about development, you talk about inequality, you talk about taxation, you talk about how you diffuse the knowledge and and you share, of course, the lesson from what we have done. So putting development at the right level. And the second thing you said, you need to implement an innovation fund. That's for me the most urgent and the most needed recommendation. So I executed myself. Be careful of the translation. And on my report, I had 5 main outcomes. First, a new doctrine with 5 priorities that we will stick to during the 5 years. First, education, because you said it and you showed it in a number of papers. Education, health, gender equality, vulnerable countries, and climate change. That were the 5 priorities. Then we needed a bill, because the bill is really a moment that you foster, you stimulate the public discussion, and we're a democracy. So we need to make sure that when we take decision, when we set up priorities, it's at the National Assembly, at the Senate. Third was to create an independent evaluation commission, and I know, I'm not sure she's here, but I really thank Rachel Glanester that I met. Sorry, sorry, because I salute you. Sorry, and I really thank you because I remember that where you were in the UK, you told me 2 things: make sure it's evidence-based, and make sure that you have this independent body to make sure that it's not someone from the government saying this is what we should do, and I put it in the report, and now it's something that it's an outcome of the bill. And well, it took a little bit more time that we expected, but now we have in France an independent evaluation committee. Fourth, making sure that we mobilize private sector, we mobilize the civil society and the researcher, of course. And 5, the innovation fund. So during those months after the report, President Macron agreed on creating this fund for innovation in development, and we started the work, which was kind of a special, or at least unique experience for me, because from January, I think, to almost June, we spent almost our Thursday on Zoom together to shape, to create this fund for innovation in development, based on what was already done on other examples in other countries. And I really would like to take the opportunity here to thank, of course, Esther, but to thank also Sasha Gallant, Anneli, Anna Shrimp, Kilian, and people probably I forgot right now, because in 6 months we managed to create a fund that is relevant, that's right now, thanks to your job, is well perceived, it's well known, and that it's now shaping also and pushing the French Development Agency to also transform the way they act in. I think Thomas Miliono wouldn't say the contrary, or if say the contrary, then there is an issue. And making sure that we have now also an evidence-based policy, and we are at the avant-garde also of development policy. And for me, and I will stop here because you don't show me the 1 minute. 3 minutes, thank you very much. More than what I have at the National Assembly, it's 2 minutes. And the idea was quite simple, is making sure that we have financing and we invest in innovation, that we base our policy on, and we do impact evaluation, and the kind of a French savor on this innovation fund was to making sure that we have also a part to foster public policy dialogue and transforming also the public policy, which was not exactly the case in other funds, and that was really something that that came during the discussion, and that one of the key aspects of the innovative also aspect of this fund was to making sure that we diffuse the knowledge and we have this transforming public policy aspect. So we had this fund that it was after financed by the French Foreign Ministry, by the French Ministry of Economy, and hébergé, sorry for the translation, by the French Development Agency, with 4 pillars that was really also in the report. 1, test new ideas. 2, evaluate the impact of new ideas. 3, scale up. And 4th, allow the dialogue between the different public policy makers and making sure that we diffuse this to all the different stakeholders and the financer. So this is the story I wanted to tell you. Just to story, I don't know, but at least the few words I wanted to share with you, to tell you I'm happy to be here because GPAL, you can be really proud of what you achieved over the last 20 years, that the road ahead of us is still long, and that we will need innovative funds such as the FEED, that I'm sure will grow, I'm sure will be even more rigorous, I'm sure will be even more impactful, and just to tell you that if there is something I'm prouder, we say prouder? Yeah. proud of all those 5 years of discussion on modernizing and reshaping the landscape of development policy in France. This is the Fund for Innovation in Development because it's in good hands. There is an amazing team, so thank you very much for all the work you have done. And I'm really excited because I know that you will do even more, better, and that we will make sure to reduce poverty, tackle climate change, and of course, work on the ocean, because it's really important, and the erosion of biodiversity. So, longue vie au FID, longue vie au JPAL. Thank you very much.